Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to be discussing what a dividend is and uncovering the 3 highest paying dividend stocks on the JSE. Stay to the end for a special mention. So let's get started. So a dividend, quite simply, is when a company is providing something of value to you, the shareholder. Now, you'll notice that I use the words something of value. That is because a dividend can either be provided in 2 forms, either a cash dividend, which is where you receive cash, or a dividend in specie, which is something where you receive something of value other than cash. Example, inventory from a company such as clothes or cars. So those are your 2 types of dividends. Now, by the by, when you receive a cash dividend, example, the company declared 1 rand for every share held, and you hold 100 shares. That means you should receive 100 rand, right? Well, that's not quite right. That is because there's something called taxes. Ah, yes, the word everyone loves to hear. Now, the current tax rate for dividends in South Africa is, at the time of making this video, sitting at 20%. So, back to our example, you would only receive 80 rand upon receipt of the dividend. This is because the company paying the dividend withholds the 20 rand tax portion and pays that to SARS on your behalf. And you keep the 80 rand remainder, which you can then use for whatever cause you deem fit. When you receive a dividend in specie, the market value of the physical asset being received will have to be determined and then multiplied by 20% in order to get the dividend tax, which needs to be paid over to SARS by the company. So that is essentially how dividends work. Quite simple. They are great forms of passive income, which can be built up in the long term so that you can eventually live off them one day. Wouldn't that be ideal? Now, what are the highest paying dividend stocks on the JSE? This requires a bit of digging, but what we are going to look for is something called the dividend yield. The dividend yield is quite simply the ratio of the dividend paid per share to the market price per share. The higher this ratio, the better. Very briefly, you have company A, which has a price per share of 100 rand, and you have company B, which has a price per share of 20 rand. Company A declares a dividend of 5 rand per share, and company B declares a dividend of 2 rand per share. Which one has the higher dividend yield? Do the math. Company B, right? So someone seeking the highest dividend possible would invest in company B over company A, assuming theoretically if those were the only companies in the population. Lastly, and this is also important, we want to try not only to find companies which pay high dividends, but we also need to find companies which have a good track record of growing their dividends. Because what is the point of investing in a company which has a high dividend, but it's not consistent and it only lasts a year? Now, taking a look at the JSE, these were the highest consistent dividend paying stocks I could find. Please note this is excluding real estate investment trusts, which by their very nature are required by law to pay out a large portion of their earnings. So let's head over to my computer and give it a look. So the first company which we are going to look at is Sunland, the financial services giant. Now, if we go ahead over to their website and we look at this chart, we can see some interesting figures. Now, before I unpack these, Sunland currently has a dividend yield of 5.42%, which is very, very high. It's quite decent. I think the industry average for the JSE is currently sitting anywhere between 2 to 3%. So if we come over here and we scroll down, we see here that this graph starts with the dividend being paid all the way from the year 2000. Now, what we find is that for 16 consecutive years, Sunland was able to increase their dividend each and every single year. And they went through a slight speed bump in 2015, but after that, they remained steadfast in their growth of their dividend. And this is just truly phenomenal, in my opinion. But yeah, Sunland dividend yield currently of 5.42%. The next one is AVI. Now, I couldn't get a chart dating as far back as the Sunland data, but AVI, according to share data, as of now, currently has a dividend yield sitting at 5.72%. So I don't know how accurate this 5.5% is, but I'm using share data when I'm telling you guys the current dividend yield figures. Anyway, AVI went through a period of about 11 consecutive years, year-on-year dividend growth, which is also absolutely phenomenal. AVI, again, in the food services industry, another very stable industry. If we then go ahead and we look at another company, it is Vodafone, or in South Africa, Vodacom, a telecommunications giant that is pretty well known throughout the world. Now, over here, it's not the exact same story as Sunland and AVI, where it's just complete year-over-year growth consistently. It's a slightly different story for Vodacom. Now, Vodacom hasn't been able to consecutively year-over-year for a long period of time increase their dividend. That is not the case at all. It's been a little bit of a bumpy road, but the nice thing about Vodacom is that their dividend yield currently sitting at 6.65% according to share data, which is very, very high. But what we can see is that despite them being on a bumpy road, they have a high dividend yield and they have at least been able to maintain it. Fine, they maybe have not been able to have had grown it like Sunland or AVI over the years, but they're already paying a high dividend yield, 6.65%. It's higher than AVI and Sunland. And if we go ahead and we look at the data from 2012 all the way up to 2020, we'll see that the net dividend which they've been able to pay out has at least been maintained. So that's definitely a positive indicator. So what do we see when we look at these companies collectively? What trend can we identify? Well, we see that all these companies are in relatively long-standing, stable industries. We have financial services, we have food, and we have telecommunications, which are all known for their stability. We don't find any biotechnology or artificial intelligence companies here, simply because of the nature of those industries. Those industries are fast growing, and the companies would rather use that cash to invest back into R&D than distribute to shareholders. And now to the special mention. The special mention goes to Kumba Iron Ore, which currently has a dividend yield of 9.52%, which is very, very high. Now, Kumba Iron Ore is in the mining industry. They are a global giant when it comes to mining and supplying ore to the entire world. Now, if you go ahead and look at their dividends over here, their dividend track record, this is dating all the way back to about 2007. We can see here that it's definitely been a rocky road. They had, I think this is in cents per share. So they had a total dividend all the way back in 2008 of 750 cents per share, 2,100, 1,460, 3,450, 4,420, and you guys get the point. Year over year, we're not noticing a distinctive trend, one can say, and that can be explained. They are in the commodity business. Commodities are extremely, extremely volatile, and naturally, if the commodity price is going to do well, their company is going to do well, and they'll be able to pay a good dividend. So it's not really a surprise that they have such a volatile dividend track record, but nonetheless, a dividend yield of 9.52% is absolutely mind-boggling. So that concludes this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please leave your thoughts and recommendations down below for future videos, and I will see you all in the next one. Ciao, ciao.